name is Donna Coppell. I'm a second grade teacher at Dubai American Academy.
And my name is Annie Wisniewski. I teach 5th grade.
And today we're going to be talking to you about how we use differentiation in the teaching of writing in the elementary school at DAA. What you've seen up around the room are resources that we use, and we're going to talk about them as we go through. But at the end, we're hoping to leave a few minutes for you to take some pictures so you can actually take things with you today. Basically at DAA, we really have a focus on our students being independent. We want them to be able to choose the things that work properly for them, to decide and to come up with their own ways that work best. Because not necessarily what a teacher says is the right way for a student. Their decisions are the most important. And so we provide a lot of things that help them to do this. We support them in their own decision making rather than making the decision for them. We have systems in place that help us provide continuous feedback to students so that we can monitor their decisions. It isn't just we let them make the decisions and that's great, have fun kids. It's you make your decisions and then we'll come and check in with you to structure those decisions and to make sure that you're on the right track. We don't want to let a student go completely off track in their writing. And the last thing that's super important is our celebrating. At DA, we do a lot of celebrating of student writing. We're very proud of our students' work, and we want them to be proud of it as well. Students who are confident writers, students who are happy with what they're producing, are much more likely to take new suggestions and want to write more. It's less of a struggle with them. So what I'm going to talk to you about today, and please keep in mind I am coming from an earlier perspective. Annie will talk to you about the upper elementary a little bit later on, are just some ways that we enable students to be their own writer and to figure out exactly what they need. Paper choice and pencil choice for the early years are two huge areas for students. Our school runs from KG1 to 2nd grade in the early years, where we do the writing workshop. And one of the things that they're big on is paper choice. And I've got some examples here, and I will walk around with these, so hopefully you can see them. And Annie will walk around too. Basically what we want to do is we want to enable students, everyone from K1 who may be a reluctant writer, who might need a big picture space and a few little lines to start writing. And this is even for your students who aren't actually writing by conventional standards. Maybe they're just putting squiggles on the line. Maybe they're KG1 students and they've just realized, oh, something goes there, cool. And you have something that looks like the waves of the ocean. That's fine. We want to always encourage them to know that something goes there, and then as teachers, we'll help them through the next steps. As they get a little bit older, something maybe in 1st grade, late kindergarten, it's smaller, it's visually appealing because a 1st grader can fill this in with words easily. This is going to make them feel successful. And for your more advanced, we give them some bigger lines, maybe 4 or 5 lines on a page. These are still pretty fat Danielian lines. They're something that kids can do. And what you see in the picture behind me is how the setup is so that students can actually choose what works best for them. I've got experience in K1, K2, and 2nd grade, and as I'm sure many of you know, your students are different. You have a very wide range in your classrooms. Not all of my students in 2nd grade, this is not appropriate for all of them. For some of them, this is a major challenge. For some of them, this is a bit easy. And so what we try to do is provide them with a lot of different writing supplies and paper choices so that they can choose what's best for them. We guide them, we meet with students, we call it conferring, where we pop in with small groups and individual students and check on what they're doing. But it allows them to pick something in their comfort zone, something that they're capable of doing. This is very intimidating for a KG1 or a KG2 student. It looks like a lot, and immediately there's a fear of, oh my gosh, I can't do this. By enabling them to choose what's right for their own stories or their own nonfiction, each student is getting exactly what they need for writing.
Paper choice in the upper years is a little bit different. We do paper choice, same sort of thing with the pictures, but they just have a booklet, they fold it, and this is one strategy. We teach it as a strategy of them developing out their stories. So they go through the gathering process, and then this would be a way of developing their stories across the pages, as an author might. And so they do a basic picture book, draw a couple of pictures, write a couple of lines, try to plan out their story or whatever they may be working on. So this is one way that they might do it. It's just blank paper folded in half, really easy to come up with. And the kids will draw with a lot of detail, little bit of detail, speech bubbles. It just helps the planning process. And then from there, we go with different colored paper to help them organize their writing. So this might be their first draft, this might be their second draft, and then their published piece will be on white paper or whatever color paper you designate in your classroom. And this paper is always available for them so that they can choose whichever paper color they need depending on what stage of the writing process they're in. And it's just an organizational tool to help them go through the writing process.
And so to jump on what Annie's saying there,
Yeah.
The first choice of paper what you showed, it can be a blank paper without
This is just blank paper.
and will
Yeah, I teach
children
grade
be
5,
able to
so
write?
this is my 5th grade's work actually. They just drew it and then they're just jotting down
What
notes.
happened with the second grade of course the students?
They can do the same thing, but you would want to do something
you would probably
like
see
this
less actual writing
with
on it.
lines. So this would be a 1st grade, and then this would be, this is 1st grade, 2nd grade, KG, jump to 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade.
But again, we make it a point to provide a variety so that each student can get what they need. Because the same paper could be used, but a 2nd grader is going to treat that same blank booklet very differently than a 5th grader would. A 2nd grader is not going to have the beautiful text and the quotation marks and, you know, a solid plan going on here. This is not going to come from the majority of 2nd graders. A 2nd grader would most likely have something that has mainly pictures, a little bit of text, some speech bubbles, maybe even some labels in there. But again, they can use it however they need it, and that's really the key. Yeah. So what you're looking at around the classroom now, teacher mode, what you're looking at around the conference room right now are some of the different charts that we use when we're teaching our students about writing. And the reason that we keep these up is so that students can get the help they need when they need it. For those of you who are elementary school teachers, particularly early elementary school teachers, the number one question, how do you spell? At which point I cringe and I go, oh, not again. So we provide them with 5 or more. I mean, obviously this is not everything that we do, this is just a sampling, but we provide them with different strategies. So your students who are still in the beginning phonics and still spelling phonetically by sounding it all out, they can say it slow like a turtle. Write the sounds you hear. For your more advanced students who are thinking, well, you know, how do I spell dinosaur? They could use the room. They could try it 3 ways, see which one looks right. So regardless of what your student's spelling or phonics level is, once you've taught them how to use a chart like this, they can get the help that they need when they need it. Our students are welcome to get up during writing time and use the resources. We don't put these on the walls to make them look pretty. We want students to use them. You'll notice that on some of the early years charts, we use giant Post-it notes. We teach these strategies one at a time. Each time we teach a strategy, it goes up on the poster as something that you could use. We don't just whip it out, put it up the way you see it and say, use it guys. We teach each strategy individually and then it's left up in the classroom. This particular poster has been in my 2nd grade classroom since September. It was one of the first things I taught my kids. It saves me time. I don't have to answer the how do you spell question, and it helps them to get what they need. Because if you actually sat with every single child who said, how do you spell? It would take you way too much time. We want them to be independent and to make their own decisions. And also, if this strategy doesn't work for them, that's okay. There's 4 more to try. So that's how we use the charts that you see here. Obviously for different things, this is a spelling one. This one talks about making a movie for your reader, which is how we sort of fancy up adding details and adding things to your story. But again, all of these are K-2 appropriate, and even maybe for some 3rd grade classrooms as well. Teaching pictures, kindergartners love this when you teach them how to make teaching pictures, but again, they can choose what's right for them. It differentiates between your students who might just be adding labels to things versus your students who might be ready to write a caption for a picture. Some of the other charts that we provide students, particularly in early years, depending on their needs, hold up for 2 seconds. This is a student's writing folder. This is a KG2 student at TAA, and inside their writing folder, we keep the resources that that student needs. This student isn't quite ready yet to be using sight words full time because she's still working on phonetics. She's still working on blends, digraphs, letter sounds. And the other thing that she's struggling with is she's one of those kids that says, I don't have anything to write about. Another blood boiling statement. So we've got the handy dandy, what can I write about chart tucked right inside her folder. And it gives her ideas like things I like, things I draw, things I do, my friends, my family, things I eat. So she can decide what's going to work best for her. But this is right with her, so anytime she's doing writing, it's all here, and she gets exactly what she needs. When we meet with these students, we change these. Not every student in the classroom is going to have the same thing in their folder, but if you're teaching, for example, a KG class, it's highly likely that every one of your students is going to need an alphabet chart. Your students who are moving beyond the alphabet may want a blends and digraphs chart in their folder. Your students who are beyond this might want a vowel chart in their folder, different sounds for different vowels, depending on their level. But once it's in here and you've taught them how to use it, that's it. They've got it and they can go back and use it. We want them to be able to utilize the resources.
And then for upper years, going into the folders with the charts you see. So the ones that are laminated are from Donna's grade 2, and then the written ones that aren't, these are ones that I've actually been using, except for the essay one I've just been using in the past 2 weeks with our historical fiction. And these, again, were developed with the students and what we were focusing on in our reading and our writing, because reading and writing for the upper years goes hand in hand. Whatever we're reading in novels, we try to apply elements from those novels into our own writing. We too use the folders, but we do it a little bit differently. So this is what the student is working on right now. So these are her drafts, and this is her development. And then any informational sheets or any resources that I might have for her or him, they'll have charts like this, but I'll also put things in their folder for them as well, so that when they're going through and doing their writing, it's readily available for them. So giving them an example of a historical fiction piece, giving them word choice, giving them the rubric that we're marking it on, so that they know exactly, what it's all about, what a narrative piece is all about. And then they don't get rid of the resources. Whatever they've worked on in the past, they keep it. So this was our essay unit, and she kept everything that was in there, because during an independent writing time, they can pick whatever kind of writing they want to do. So in an independent writing program, which is on top of this, again, it's choice. So a child can come up with their own cookbook, a comic book. It's just to foster that love of writing. Writing is a free expression, so you can't say that it's right or wrong. I mean, you're looking for structure, but you want to provide them with choice to get them to love it, so that they're not scared of it. I have tons of kids coming in saying, I'm not going to do good in writing this year because I'm not a good writer. And so you have to rewind that and get them set up for success. Maybe they don't like writing historical fiction, but they try it, and they want to write a comic book after. Okay, in your independent writing time, write a comic book. It's choice.
I mentioned earlier that we do student conferences with our students. This is our chance to check in on their independent decision making. As I said earlier, we don't just let them fly solo. That's not going to help them. We give them what they need in terms of resources. We help them by learning how to use other resources, but then we check in with them to make sure that they're doing it properly. We set goals with the students inside their writing folders. Sorry, mine has ABCs. Inside their writing folders, well, and there's none in here because I didn't want to lose them. This isn't my student. But we'll put things like Post-it notes with tips for that student, a goal for that student to work toward.
In upper years, we might put it in their writing notebooks. So after a lesson, we will draw a box and we'll say, and it's on one of my other slides, I'll show you a picture of it, and it says, as a writer, I'm working on, or my goal as a writer is. And so they set a goal for themselves, just one goal that they're going to work on that night with their writing, so that when you go back to conference with them, you can say, so what have you been working on in your writing? Well, I've been trying to add some more detail, trying to be more specific in my writing. Great, can you show me a spot where you've done that? And so then they'll show you, and you can give them another teaching point. That's fabulous. And now what I would like you to work on is, and you would give them another goal, or you would help set up their next goal so that they're constantly trying to improve. It gives them ownership in their writing as well, so that they want to improve and they want to push themselves as writers.
The other thing that's really nice, particularly in the early years, about leaving goals and feedback directly in their folder, is if you see them straying, because in a dream world they would all do exactly what we say and they would take every tip and master it, they don't. They get used to doing something, but then it sort of might slow down and come out of what they're working on. So I will simply walk by students and I will just tap on the post-it note that I see them not doing, and I will move on. They know what it means. I've already gone over it with them. That's how it got in their folder in the first place. And they can go right back to it. They know what to do with it. It gives them that immediate feedback, that immediate help, but exactly where they need it. It's not just a general blanket statement that we've thrown out there.
Okay, so building on the earlier, this is pictures from my classroom that I did. So I have this lovely writing process up so that all of my students have it. And these are just paper plates that I got at Lulu's, and then I made the inserts on my own. And then these are actually clothespins here. So then the writing process, they can see how they're moving through it on their own. And we have gathering ideas, developing, drafting, revision, editing, and then publishing. So I know where each of my students are. So that I know, okay, these are in gathering ideas, we were working on drafting today, so then I can go in conference with these students and see what help they need to get them to the next step. Maybe they're just kind of lingering in the gathering ideas and they need help to move past. So then you go up to them, you conference with them, and you ask them, what are you working on in your writing? Well, I've done all these ideas, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to develop these ideas out. Well, then I would point to, that's just one of my charts. I have 3 different developing charts for 3 different stages. They're developing our stories right across the pages of a mini book. So that's this book, and this is the developing stories that this child decided that was best for them. Other students wrote it out point form in their writing journals, and that was fine for them. And then other students wrote it in a paragraph because they wanted to add in dialogue to it. Those were my more advanced students. Or they had the novel that they were reading and they tried to flip through and looking for ideas. That was the way that they developed it. So it's a big part of talking to your students, saying, how can I guide them to the next level? So this is developing goals. I'm talking about all of it all at once. So moving for independent goals. So if they're here, their goal for that night, and then what they would write in their goal box would be to try to one of the developing ways or developing strategies, either by a picture book or a point form, or thinking about one thing about your character and just developing out your character, or developing out the setting, or developing out an idea in a paragraph form, point form. We would set that goal together, whatever works best for them, and you check in with them saying, how did it go last night? Which is your conferring, talking to the student. So then again, you just kind of see this, but this is a visual for you, and this is a visual for them as well. So you know where the strugglers may be, and you know where the ones that need to be pushed a little bit more. Because if they're here, okay, so they're right on task, so you still teach your lessons, but then you need to go back and help those ones that may be a little bit behind. So every strategy that we discuss in class are visible all the time. So this is the other 2 developing ones, and you can see them kind of go across. So if this didn't work, maybe they want to draw a little, yes, we still draw pictures and diagrams in grade 5, and we draw little stick figures, and it helps. This is a lesson on internal and external traits. So they wrote the internal traits on the inside of their stick figure and the externals on the outside of their figure, and that helps some kids clearly see, okay, these are the internal motivations of my character, these are my external motivations of my character, and they're able to blend that into their story. Some of them like doing it in paragraph form and point form. I also do in different color on the charts. So for the basic stuff or something that I want all of them to try, and then this one says for more sophisticated drafting, so that they know they want to try that, and then to push themselves even more, they can go to this. So again, it gives them choice, and it shows this is where you may be at, and that's fine. But if you want to try to push yourself even further, here's the next step. And these stay up for the entire unit. I don't take them down. Even times I blend it into the next unit, and I just keep them up there so that they can constantly be looking around and they might get an idea from it. Different structures, different methods for different learners. So, So I just taught this one, and there it is there. I basically ripped it off and brought it in today. So, whoop it up. But again, it was just something that we could do. But this was one way that we were revising for, and one more now. Revising for historical fiction, and then this was just another way of revision. Some kids will go better with first you need to do this, next you need to do this, then you need to do this, finally you need to do this. Some kids will be able to work with this type of revision where you just give them tips and ideas. Some need it more laid out. So you have two different charts, and both of these charts are up in my classroom at the same time. Again, because some students need that first you do this, next you do this, then you do this. And others can just give a couple hints and tips, ideas, and it's going to fall down. That's okay. I'm going to bring it up here. But some of them, this was just an idea, like revise for mood and atmosphere. And then you give them examples. And then an idea of flashbacks. And I always do drawings because some are visual learners and they like visual a little bit better. And so when I said different structures, different methods, these are different methods. Different structures are this one here. I'll go this way. So ways of drafting on an essay. These are 3 different structures of essays. Different ways that they can structure it. Again, it gives them the structure, what we called it. I drew a diagram of what it might look like if we had to draw it in a picture. And then I gave them an example. So this was a mentor essay that they had in their books. And then this was an example. So I used to think my dad wasn't a warm person, but now I realize that he's just shy, even in our family. So it shows the alternate bit. So it gives them an idea of what a thesis statement might be, supporting statements might look like. It's always, you can give them structure and just say, okay, go to it, but you need to give them an example so that they can kind of see it as well. And I see that they remember this. So when I conference with them, I say, okay, what are you working on? Well, I'm working on my essay structure. Well, which one are you using? They might look up and say, I'm using the parallel one, the hands. And they actually use it on one hand, on the other hand. And they'll write that in their writing. And they'll do a box, so they'll write their thesis statement, put a box around it, and then write out their 3 reasons. So again, pictures help them with it. You can do this in the lower years as well. This is more in upper years to provide that. So the first one is normally the easiest one, and then I provide 2 more for kids that want a bit of a challenge. So for my writers that are okay with this, maybe struggling in essays a little bit, I had a couple of students in my class that never wrote an essay before, so they went with the first structure, and that was fine. We're going to be writing a next structure, probably another essay later on this year, and they might choose a different structure to try to push themselves and develop themselves as a writer. And you can do this with anything. That's essays. You can go with this one I ripped off my wall. So this was the one that we did for historical fiction. Again, pictures, and the biggest thing too is to give mentor texts. Writing goes hand in hand with reading. So all of these books, I have tabs in them. So I've read these books to my kids, and I put, yes, we use picture books in grade 5. They're great for narrative stories and for different elements. But I put little tabs, and I'll write on the tabs of whatever element we're talking about so they can go through, and they're welcome to come up, grab these books, and if they want an example, flip it through. Listen. Questions?
Questions? We're happy to answer.
Are you using the same rubrics to grade all the students? Right.
Oh, we're getting to rubrics, yes. With our rubrics, it's a little bit more of a continuum, so it's not a clear, this is a level 3, this is a level 2, this is a level 1. When it goes through, again, it's a little bit different. And it's a continuum. And so it'll give points, and it'll give, for description, it'll say, I showed why characters do what they do by including their thinking, but it's not just one point. There's several different points within that. And so they might be highlighted in a 2, but then they might be highlighted in some in the 3, and then they might be highlighted in some in the 4. It's more to try to pick out where do they fall on it, what are they able to do well, and what do they need to work on. So it's never, you're doing this wrong. It's, here's where you are as a writer. What are our next steps to get you up there to become a better writer?
And all of our rubrics, even in the early years, are set up that way. It's designed so that you can look ahead and guide your students based on the next steps developmentally as well. Our rubrics at DA for writing in particular run from K to 5 with the same rubricing system so that they know exactly what's expected of them. It's not a surprise when they get to grade 3 and they're like, wait, I didn't know that was next. They know. That's the stretch yourself that you see on the charts, or your advanced kids that choose a more difficult strategy.
Where does she get the rubrics from?
The Teachers College Reading and Writing Project at Columbia University. We teach the reading and writing workshops at DAA.
Oh, okay.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Sorry. The Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. It's currently aligned with the United States Common Core Standards, if any of you are familiar with those, or perhaps you use those in your schools.
Teachers College?
Teachers College Reading and Writing Project.
From where?
Columbia University in New York.
So do you use the writer's workshop as well?
Yes.
How much time do you allocate for writing? For a week, let's say during a week, how much time do you allocate for writing? Do your students write every day?
Our
Twice a
students
week?
write every day. In the very early years, and for example, KG1 and KG2, if we can get them going for 10 minutes in the beginning of the year, we're really proud of ourselves. By the end of the year, we expect them to be between 20 and 25 minutes. Keep in mind in the early years that also involves pictures as well. It's not strictly writing. But by the time they're in first and second grade, we expect at least 40 minutes a day. And then
Upper years is anywhere from, we do it in block system, so I try to get them to go for about 45 minutes to an hour depending on.
It's every day?
every day, yes.
How much time do you have
Other
for
than
English
your
every day?
creative writing lessons, or is this what you do for creative writing?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
If you're doing a writer's workshop every day, because it's an everyday program.
Yes.
Is this additional to your other creative writing lessons, or is this what you do?
This is what
for
we do.
creative? Okay.
And within that, you can do creative writing because every writing can be creative. So historical fiction, they're
So
creative.
what I meant was, would you give them the topic to write, or do they choose
They
no matter
choose.
what?
They choose.
But it is linked to all your other topics as well, or not necessarily?
Depending on the unit and depending on the grade as well. For example, in second grade, we just finished a nonfiction unit. At the same time, we were doing forces in motion in science. And so while we didn't insist that they write about forces in motion, it was something that they knew a lot about. And when I modeled the lessons, that was what I wrote about. And every single one of my kids was like, oh yeah, I know a lot about that too. And then they were excited to write about it. We don't force it, but it's in the delivery. You can make them without forcing them.
Yeah.
Your teachers, you know what I mean.
We did historical fiction, and we just finished a unit in social studies on colonization, slavery, and so a lot of the kids are like, "Yay!" And then some of them, I have kids wanting to write about World War II, and so that's fine. So then I help them find the information on that, which is fine too, because in our social studies textbook, it has information on World War II, so it's still cross-curricular, it's hitting our standards in every which way, so.
And we try to be sensitive because especially here in Dubai, we have a very, Dubai itself has a very fluid population, people constantly coming and going. And while we do teach an American curriculum, not all of our students have experiences that, say, your average American student in the US might have. So we try to be flexible there. If they don't know anything about it, forcing them to write about it is not going to help them in any way.